Hi everyone, welcome to today's new video. Today I have my monthly wrap up and we're gonna see which books I read this month and my thoughts on them. So starting off, I want to say that I was in a bit of a reading slump, so I only read 3 books this month. But 2 of them were like quite good books and one of them wasn't really my taste. And if you've watched my first video on this account, you will see that I had like a little TBR and it was stacked. That TBR was stacked. It was like 8 books on my TBR. I had lesson chemistry, I had like a novella, I had some I had a lot of books on them. I didn't follow my TBR. Not really. I did kind of follow it because I did read some of the books. I would like to start with A Court of Wings and Ruin. Technically, I read this like in August, but it was on my September TBR. So I'm gonna talk about this. This isn't included in the 3 books that I read this month because I read this in August, but it was on my September TBR. But yeah, first up we have A Court of Wings and Ruin. And I'm just gonna say I gave this book 5 stars. Obviously, I think only the first book was not a 5-star in this series, but all the other books up until now have been 5 stars. A Court of Wings and Ruin is the 3rd part of the ACOTAR series, and it is thick. As you can see, yeah, I broke the spine. For everyone going to complain, yes, I broke the spine. I like breaking my spines. So, but I read this book and it is thick. It is over 700 pages, at least my edition. Yeah, it's around 710 pages. So it was a thick one. It took me almost a month. I don't read one book at a time, so that's why it took me over a month. But yeah, it was a thick one. The middle part was a bit slow. I always have this with Sarah J. Maas books, that usually the beginning is really good. The ending is amazing, but the middle part is just really slow and there's a lot of information and there's a lot of kind of nothing is happening, but it is all information for the ending, which is not a problem, but because it is such a long and thick book, it kind of bores me out sometimes. I did give this 5 stars because the ending was amazing, and I honestly think this book is better than ACOTAR. And I know this is kind of a controversial one. I love this one because of the relationship between Rhysand and Feyre, but this one, they already had that relationship, so it was more about like the found family, and it was more with her family as well. So Nesta and also Elaine had a little bit of a bigger role in this one, and also the beginning where she was like in the spring court. I love that. I honestly love that, and there was so much happening in this book. While this one, the ending was really good and the relationship was really good, but the rest of it was a little less in my opinion. But I do think with A Court of Wings and Ruin that there was a lot of talking about a war, but the war only started in like the last 150 pages of this book, and that was kind of a bummer to me at least. But still, I love this book because it's part of this series, and this series will always be good to me. I just think Sarah J. Maas could have kept those books a little less long, in my opinion. So after that, we go to another book that was on my September TBR, which is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. And I really have mixed opinions when it comes to this book. I think I rated it 2 stars, 2.5 stars. Yeah, it's non-fiction, and I don't read non-fiction. So first of all, it wasn't kind of in my comfort zone, it wasn't really my genre, so I get why I didn't like it. But also, she has a really weird way of telling her story because it kind of goes everywhere. She has recipes in her books, but she also has this storyline which goes from when she was kind of a teen to like in her 30s and stuff, and that part was quite good. I think she has a really nice way of telling her life and explaining how her life looks, but I kind of missed a little bit of depth. I would have loved her to tell a little bit more in depth why she lived that way, why she did the things she do. And also, I'm so sorry for everyone who loves this type of life, but I think it's really, really sad, her life. Because in this book, she tells about how the only type of validation she appreciated was from men. So she was all about using her body, and she had to drink all night. She had to be the life of the party only to feel like validated. And I just found that really, really sad to read about. It just didn't speak to me, and I didn't like that story because it was all about drinking, partying, sleeping with as many men as possible. There was this one part where she was kind of like sabotaging the relationship between her friend and her partner, and I couldn't vibe with that. And that's why I didn't like this book. But I've heard so many people say that this is like a comfort read for them, or that they could really relate to it. So I don't want to completely trash talk this book, but it wasn't for me, and that's why I rated it this low. But still, I kind of enjoyed it because there's the stories that she told were also quite funny. So she talks about all these nights out, and the stories were pretty funny, but it wasn't my type of book, unfortunately. So after that, I read Crown of Midnight, and I love it. This is officially one of my favorite fantasy series like ever. I don't think the ACOTAR series can compare to, and also can't compete with, the Throne of Glass series. Now I get why everyone says Throne of Glass is superior to ACOTAR, because I couldn't imagine how anything could get better than ACOTAR. But now that I've read Throne of Glass, I honestly don't want to go back into this series because Throne of Glass is just so much better. So first up we have Selena, I think her name is. I never know how to pronounce her name, but we follow her in like the first books, and then a lot of things happen. I just can't get into the plot of this book because it will spoil so many things. But the Throne of Glass series is about this girl called Selena. Well, she's a murderer for money. So I think it is actually said on the back of the book of the first Throne of Glass book, but she goes into like this tournament for the king, who's like a really cruel man, to become the champion of the king. That's what the first book is all about. And now I'm on to, I think it is the second book, but it's the third book that I've read because I read The Assassin's Blade first, and that was such a good thing for me to do because that's when I really, really realized that I love this series. So I read this book. I read it, I think it was 4.5 stars, somewhere in the line of 4.5, somewhere in that range, because it's amazing. The characters are amazing, and I've seen a lot of hate for one particular character who is Cowell. I don't know how to pronounce his name once again, but there's a lot of hate towards him. But I loved him in this book. I loved like Selena and Cowell, and Dorian is also amazing. I love him. But yeah, I love those three characters, and I just don't know. This series is just, everything about this series is so fantastical and so well written, and the story is so engaging. And even though Selena is like a ruthless killer, but I root for her like so much. I love her. So yeah, that is my rating for Crown of Midnight. And then we go into a book which I actually said on my TikTok that I would never never read this book, but I did, and I kind of liked it actually, which is so weird because I wouldn't have expected that. And it is Icebreaker, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And you probably think that's not really high, but a 3-star rating for me is really good actually. That means I liked the book, but there were just a couple of things missing for me to love it. And yeah, I just really like this one. We have two characters, Anastasia and Nathan, and obviously they're gonna get their little romance. And what I loved most about this book is that Anastasia and Nathan actually communicate together, and they didn't have like the 3-act breakup. They just stay together, talks about it, figured it out together, and that was so refreshing for once. So I really liked this book. I do think there was a fairly large amount of smut in there, which wasn't kind of necessary for me. I think if you would have taken the smut part out of the book, there would have been not enough plot to exist on, and that is, well, that's not enough for me. I want a book that has a really good plot with smut, but not smut with a plot. And that was kind of what this was for me. But I did read another book, I think it was in August, which is Husky, and this book was all smut with a little bit of plot, and that one I really didn't like. But this one was kind of like the amount of smut and plot was good enough for me to really enjoy the story. So Icebreaker was, in my opinion, a really good book. I never read about hockey or ice skating, so I'm definitely going to be reading more of these books after this one because it was really good. I think Anastasia is just a very likable character. I loved everything from her point of view. Also, Nathan's point of view was refreshing because you don't normally see a guy's point of view with like so much love for the female main character. He was immediately like, I love her, she's amazing, I want to be with her, and that was so cute. But yeah, I like that dual point of view, and I also love how they talked about like mental health, eating disorders, all those kind of really difficult topics in this book, but they did it in such a way that it was actually very accessible, and it wasn't that heavy, because you can make it really heavy really fast, but this was just talked about, and it was in a way that it still was enjoyable to read without it making the whole story really heavy. And I really liked that about the book, so I give this 3.5 stars. Really cute. Also, don't let the cartoon cover fool you, because this was smutty as hell, and the smut scenes were really good. So if you want like a smutty book with enough plot to stand on, definitely check this one out because it was really cute. I know I'm late to the hype, but still, I would recommend this book 1000%. Yes. So this was my September wrap up. I hope you maybe found like a recommendation in this video, and I would like to say like and subscribe, and I'll see you next video. Bye bye.